Following sexual assaults on a number of young girls, a man named Kenneth Baxter is detained for questioning as a suspect and is treated brutally by Detective Sergeant Johnson. The Offence presents a vivid picture of a police officer driven to depression and excessive reaction by accumulated experience of death, violence, despair and misery. The film depicts the potential, if extreme, consequences on the human psyche of constant emotional bombardment and frustration. However, I would say that much more lurks beneath the surface, as existential angst and lack of personal fulfillment play their parts in the psychological deterioration of Detective Sergeant Johnson. Johnson is, as are we all, the product of his character, his encounters and his environment. Although ultimately we must accept responsibility for our own actions, we all impact or influence one another, and as social creatures we seek to make connections and build sympathetic relationships with others, while trying to achieve balance and keep a sense of proportion in our lives and outlooks. However, if that balance is skewed by experience and social dissatisfaction, the consequences can be catastrophic. In the original play, the action revolves around 3 dialogues. One between Johnson and his wife Maureen, which offers insight into Johnson's personal life and his social environment. One with Johnson's superior, in which we gain understanding of his professional position and tensions. And then there is the key exchange between Johnson and suspect Baxter, in which we discern vital indications as to Johnson's declining state of mind and his resultant actions. There are several nods to existentialism, as we are offered regular insights into Johnson's personal issues, and we witness reminders of his solitude and his insular nature. He doesn't share his thoughts and feelings with his wife of some 16 years, which might have afforded him some degree of catharsis. Indeed, a barrier has formed between them, leading to resentment on both sides, a lack of emotional fulfillment, and even a sense of mutual rejection. Thinking he may have killed Baxter, and desperate to be listened to, a theme that will be revisited several times, Johnson tries to open up to Maureen. Almost by way of rationalisation of his treatment of Baxter, he sets out to express his thoughts and experiences in an attempt to gain a sympathetic understanding of the personal torment he is undergoing. Yet he is hesitant to discuss such matters with Maureen, emphasising the emotional distance between them. On hearing some of the gruesome detail he shares with her, Maureen is physically sick, and Johnson, feeling rejected, withdraws emotionally from the discussion, saying he won't open up again. This provokes an impassioned and bitter response from his wife, which encapsulates their relationally barren marriage and highlights his sense of personal isolation and his perceived lack of sympathetic understanding regarding the torment he is experiencing. Even worse, however, he is deliberately hurtful towards his wife, passing vicious comments on her appearance and his disappointment with her in their marriage. He appears to recognise this moment as a turning point in his life, and is taking stock of how he arrived at this point, apparently blaming Maureen for his lack of emotional and, importantly, sexual fulfillment. He has repressed so much horror, pain, bitterness and anger that now, some 20 years later, his feelings are starting to overflow and affect his professional conduct. He has allowed his feelings, including, we learn, personal disappointment and sexual frustration, to overwhelm his judgment and conduct. In his interview with Detective Superintendent Cartwright, Johnson seeks reassurance and understanding from his superior. Again, Johnson asks repeatedly to be listened to as he tries to fathom what is going on inside his head. But Cartwright is concerned only with regulation, convention and legality, none of which is useful to Johnson, who is effectively having a breakdown. In the end, Johnson is once again left feeling rejected and not understood, so he becomes confrontational, a reaction that leads only to further isolation. Johnson comes closest to achieving understanding and empathy in his conversation with suspect Baxter. Assuming Baxter's guilt, Johnson tries to provoke or goad Baxter into a confession by discussing his feelings and motivations for the attacks, but it becomes reasonably clear that in so doing, Johnson may be revealing some of his own dark thoughts and desires. When searching for a missing girl and probable latest victim of sexual assault, Janie, Johnson breaks with convention and heads off alone. When he finds her, he doesn't call out or seek support. He tries, somewhat awkwardly, to comfort her, and there is a vague suggestion of attraction. He also appears surprised and slightly disappointed at the arrival of his colleagues. The matter of Baxter's guilt or innocence is not resolved. The fact is, however, that Baxter is used to being bullied, and he considers himself something of a manipulator of those who set out to bully him. He plays Johnson at his own game, eventually leading Johnson to recognise his own desires and motivations. Stunned and almost grateful for this breakthrough in communication and understanding, Johnson actually asks for Baxter's help. But in so doing, and reflecting the immense pain and desperation he feels, Johnson unwittingly causes pain to Baxter, and Baxter breaks the spell of complicity and understanding by breaking free from Johnson's grip and turning on him. Baxter feels he has broken Johnson and prepares to leave, but this act provokes a number of responses within Johnson. Deep hurt at having finally found understanding, only to be rejected by the only person who appears to have any degree of comprehension of what he is suffering, loss of pride and position, and a sense of defeat in that this suspect has turned the tables on him and is taking control as he prepares to leave. He may also have recognised that he is essentially no better than this suspect for whom he has nothing but contempt. As a result, Johnson loses control and lashes out at this embodiment of all the perversions and social ills he has encountered over the years. But he may also be lashing out at himself, as he furiously seeks to destroy that dubious part of himself that he has just been forced to acknowledge. Shortly after mortally punching Baxter, Johnson returns to his senses, sees what he has done, and declares, "Oh God, oh my God." Whether this is solely in recognition of what he has done, or is also an acknowledgement of what he has become, is left to the audience to decide. I found The Offence intense, powerful and thought-provoking, but also relentlessly bleak and dense. If I'm being honest, I'd have to say I found some of the dialogue clunky and unconvincing, but this was offset by excellent performances all round, especially from Sean Connery and Ian Bannon, who complemented and enhanced one another perfectly. My thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it of some value.